Armored Core is a time-honored series that began in the late 90s as a mech sim combined with a third-person shooter to provide something gamers have never quite seen before. When the 1997 demo disc came to our home, Armored Core for the PlayStation 1 was on it, and I played that game to death. The series is known for its customization of your robot, taking missions and fighting opponents either in the missions or through an arena mode. This game in particular, For Answer, was published by Ubisoft and developed from Software, who has developed much of the series to date. Ubisoft is well known for publishing other titles as well, although I don't know how much influence that corporation had on the development of For Answer. The game certainly seems to be polished, at least mechanically anyways. Without further ado, let's begin the review proper. The learning curve for Answer is much less than other entries in the series. The game starts you off with a tutorial mode that will make sure you know what you're doing before you begin. Now I prefer control style A, because it feels right to me. Selecting a corporation isn't a big deal, it just starts you off with a newbie craft and you can change it on later. Pick whichever one you want. For further testing, there's also a test mode under the Axis menu. Like older games, For Answer lets you conduct arena matches sponsored by the game's organization known as Collard. You won't earn too much money facing earlier opponents, but it's something you could do either during or after the main game's missions. Missions are generally fun and follow a logical sequence of events, but some of them can get a little bit tedious. However, those tedious missions can bring in good money that you can use to customize your machine. In addition, I have to go and wander around to find some enemies in some levels, which is indicative of a map that's just a little bit too big or there's not enough action. The environments are destructible, however, something that we've come to expect in this day and age. It's nice. Sometimes the game will prompt you to go it alone, or to select a hired hand as a partner. I firmly believe that consorts are a waste of money, even on hard mode. If you don't like how the mission turned out, you can always replay it afterwards to try and reduce your repair bill. When you played ordered matches, you faced opponents for cash and equipment. Beware though, you can only get so far with the starter craft. I got about 5 or 6 opponents in with the basic craft, and I started having my ass kicked. In general, the minute you lose your primal armor, which is a lot like a shield in some respects, they will begin to eat you like a piranha. Basic enemies throughout the game will mostly stand still and act dumb. However, there are some that are a little bit smarter. Some AI, such as the pilot behind Wonderful Body, are just plain stupid. Some have so much armor that if you aren't conservative with your shots, you will run out of ammunition. The weapons in the game are a lot of fun too. Some are hard to use, but can be incredibly powerful if you actually hit with them. I personally like the back-mounted grenade cannons. They feel cheap, but a well-placed shot will devastate even at next. Laser blades are pretty much useless in this game except for the multiplayer duels and the one mission here where you have to take down GA America's Arms Fort. Arms Forts are enemies in the game that set For Answer apart from every other game in the series. Earlier games had giant-ass enemies here and there, but not in numbers encountered in this game. There are really 2 ways to defeat an Arms Fort, the easy way and the hard way. Most of them have a blind spot. If you take advantage of this fact, you can deal massive damage while remaining largely unscathed. Sounds like poor design choices to me. Anyways, if you feel like being cheap or as efficient as possible, there are ways to avoid taking hits while fighting these monoliths of 3,000 to 5,000 crew members hell-bent on killing you. Some fire massive fireballs. It is generally good practice to avoid being hit by said fireballs. They hurt. I have no idea where some forts get the power to fire shot after shot after shot in quick succession, but I digress. Like here. How the hell did I not get hit by this? Twice! I should have been dust. If you're not careful, blasts will not only take out your primal armor, but you'll sustain around 40 to 50% damage. Not cool. The controls in the game are rock solid, responsive, and in the case of flight, sensitive, very sensitive to the press of the shoulder button. I've never had any issues with the controls. The learning curve to pick up the game is light to moderate, making it easy to get into. If you need to, control options can still be accessed under the Access menu. Everything seems to make sense. If none of it makes any sense to you, you can always custom map whatever you want. The game features intuitive menus and a kind of key that can be accessed by pressing the start button, typically. This shows you what you can do with the menus and comes in real handy during the assembly process. For a game that only puts out to about 720p, For Answer doesn't look half that bad at all. At some parts of the environment, you could tell they really skimped out, particularly with buildings and solid walls. Sometimes levels can seem a bit bland, but that's what you kind of get for a post-apocalyptic scenario. Some fights, like the Spirit of Motherwell mission, will push the PlayStation 3 to its absolute graphical maximum. This shows because at times during that fight, the PS3 will begin to chug along as it renders all that stuff going on. For the most part, this game is smooth, polished, and well done. From Software has done a good job, but I feel that Ubisoft may have had a hand in some of the polishing. Armored Core would not be what it is today without complete and utter customization of your craft. You'll spend as much time modifying your machine as you do fighting with it. If that kind of work bores you to death, you may want to try an arcade-style third-person shooter. You'll be able to choose everything from your paint scheme to your camo pattern if you want one. As you look at parts in the assembly menu, the triangle button will allow you to see all sorts of data, and not even I fully understand it all. This game is hardcore with its customization. Eventually you will get so far into the series that you could just buy every part available in the shop menu. Early on, you won't have much money or a wide selection of parts, but later on the game offers at least twice the customization of Armored Core 4. Other than the great gameplay, the crowning achievement for Answer is the ability to press the square button in the assembly menu to sort any part by a plethora of factors, from the fire rate to the load to energy cost to armor protection. Good God, I have spent so much time building mechs, it isn't even funny. The sorting ability makes it easy as cake to effectively select what legs you need for a particular loadout, something that was slightly more complicated in earlier installments of the series. You can literally mix and match whatever you want. The number of loadouts has to be astronomical. For Answer introduces stabilizers, which helps balance your craft's movement. You can also take advantage of the instabilities by moving faster in a given direction, or you could create those instabilities on purpose. FRS memory is unlocked by completing missions and defeating arena opponents gradually throughout the game. These points can be used to fine-tune your machine in every way. I generally like to put early points in primal armor than generator output. You can save designs you like, in addition to loading other schematics. If you have all of the parts, you can load a schematic and boom! You have the craft ready to go sans FRS enhancements. Now, the story is pretty standard and at times bland, but you can really get into it if you try. A league of corporations has taken most of mankind to the skies in cradles after the Earth had been polluted by Kojima particles, the stuff that mechs run on for primal armor. Some were left behind on the surface and formed colonies. One such colony in the game is known as Linark. The League involves your major political issues reflected in today's society: corruption, pollution, morality, and ethical dilemmas. Eventually, a new organization, Orca, will take prominence against the League and attempt to punish the corrupt organization. How so is up to you to find out. I'm not spoiling it. The voice acting is well done. If you know your anime, the game is narrated by the gentleman that did the voice of Treize Kushernada from the English dub of New Mobile Report Gundam Wing. Missions you take in the game will affect what comes next. Though in free play mode, you'll be able to select any mission, access the hard mode, and face any opponent next. There are co-op options as well, but in order to play the single-player co-op, both players need to remain on one screen. Really isn't ideal. You could do it over LAN though for a single screen each, and that's pretty good. Now, the weakest part of For Answer's lineup is the multiplayer. It's here, but the split screen is just awful. They letterbox everything and shrink it down, making everything hard as piss to see. Why was this necessary? I don't have any idea. You can also play LAN to eliminate the split screen issue if you have another copy of the game and another PlayStation 3. I'm not sure how long the servers are up for this game, but there were many online matches going on, with many of the players being Japanese and American. They're absolutely ruthless. If you think you're good at the game, they'll shred you to death with laser blades and other instruments of death. It's crazy. This has to be one of my all-time favorite games. I'd go so far to say that For Answer is a hidden gem that can be found on both the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. Complete, you can find it around $19. It's not by any means extremely rare or anything, but according to my sources, the game is becoming a bit uncommon. It's definitely worth your time and your money. I spent around 120 hours inside this game, and I paid $30 for it back in the day. That equates to around 4 hours per dollar, a great value in comparison to a $60 game on the market that provides, at most, 20 to 30 hours of gameplay at a standard rate of 0.5 hours per dollar. This means for me, For Answer was 8 times the value of a standard game off the shelf. Let's look at some of the pros and cons. On the positive side, this game has really smooth gameplay, except for the fight against the Spirit of Motherwell. Most of the time, this game is smooth and plays well. Excellent controls. They take a little bit to get used to, but once you get used to them, everything's natural. Armored Core would not be Armored Core without the excellent customization, and the sorting feature that was added to this game makes it phenomenal. And finally, this game's a lot of fun. There are some cons to the game as well. Multiplayer is weak. Some of the levels are bland, or it could be tedious. And although this last one isn't going to negatively affect the score, I do not like Ubisoft's publisher license agreement where they say that they own the disc that I have and they own everything on it and the license, and that I don't have the actual game. Go f*** off. Back in the day, I gave this game an amazing score of 93.9 out of 100. Giving it another assessment now, the combined score weighs out to a 93.6 out of 100, making this my number 16 best game of all time.